In today's video, we're going to be covering something a little bit different. Most of the shows that I've covered are mostly American, at least in some of the humor and the people behind it. Excluding the once-in-a-blue-moon Japanese show, today at the request of Front Porch, what a stupid name, he wanted me to look at the Ricky Gervais show back in 2010. I wasn't really caught up on things related to Ricky Gervais prior to this review. His name popped up in some of the movies I saw, like I saw him on the poster for the Muppet movie and went, hey, it's the funny British man. Okay, he sounds alright. Didn't think too much of it. And maybe a commercial for the British Office series. It used to be on Adult Swim back in the late 2000s, and I thought it was kind of shit. Keep in mind, I was around 10 years old, and a whole show based around awkward in-office humor would have no effect on a kid whose only job at the time was stealing other people's garbage for money. There used to be a recycle drive thing around my home where I can exchange cans for cash. I smelled like shit every day, but at least I was a pretty wealthy third grader. And now I thought it was a really funny comedy. The documentarian style and piece of shit camera quality made the awkward cringe you would get from one of these British shows and characters feel like you were biting straight into a lemon.
Yeah. Come on, listen to her.
So The Office was the shit in the UK and is loved by most people that love comedy, especially British comedy, and even earned Steven and Ricky a Golden Globe. It was so good that stupid Americans took their shit and milked that fucker for 187 more episodes than the original property and fucking ruined it. Not really, the American Office is perfectly fine. I'd even say it's even more humorous than the original British show, with how dumb and absurd some of the jokes that they perform. They share the same name, but are entirely different. One's down to earth, and one is an outrageous comedy. So because The Office is well praised, it gave Ricky Gervais and his good friend Stephen Merchant a little bit more opportunities in the entertainment world. Movies and TV shows like Extras and Derek, but most notably in radio. Now, Ricky and Steven already had some experience working in radio. They worked on some radio shows before The Office and were laid off, and while The Office was popular, XFM gave them their own show. While working there, Ricky and Steven found someone perfect, someone who is the perfect comedic subject to include into their radio show. Carl Pilkington, a producer they met and liked entirely because of his weird worldview and roundness of his head. Which, when Ricky makes fun of it, it isn't really without reason. I mean, look at the fucking thing. So somewhere around the mid-2000ish time, the podcast with Carl was somewhat iconic. At one point being one of the biggest and most downloaded podcasts of all time. And with how wild some of the parts of the podcast were, somebody, whether it had been a fan or a studio, would try to visualize the conversations. And that's exactly what the company HBO did, and it was pretty great. The Ricky Gervais show is great because Carl Pilkington is amazing. That sounds odd. Your favorite part is not the guy the show is named after. In fact, Ricky Gervais is probably in his own series, and I find this utterly hilarious that he's completely blown out comedically by this driveling idiot. The show's only named after him because he's really the biggest name.
It shouldn't be called the Ricky Gervais show. It should be called the Carl Pilkington show. I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm so lazy. I just turn up now and prod him. Look. Like you can resist that. It makes me go a bit, oh, God.
And that's what I'm saying about prep.
Carl is the best character because there is 100% no way how to anticipate what his response to any situation will be, even if it is the simplest problems. And Carl will give you a perspective so out of left field that it leaves you laughing at just the idea. What makes it funnier is that there's no artificialness to any of his answers. Over time, you'd think that he'd be just saying shit just to be entertaining and make the radio show more enjoyable for the listeners and them. But once you actually hear him, you slowly begin to realize that no, he is completely genuine in his idiocy and asinine philosophical outlooks on life. There's 100% no way that he's a character. If he is, then he deserves some sort of award for method acting because he's been doing this character for like over a decade.
Like I've said, you know, jellyfish and what have you.
Well, no.
It's 97% water or something.
Yeah.
So how much are they doing? Just give them another 3%, make them water. And that's more useful.
Give him another 3% and make him water.
I said earlier that Ricky was the worst character on his own show, and I still believe that to be true, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't serve a purpose. Steven and Ricky play lesser roles and give the keys to Carl to drive the show, but he helps stir the conversations into territories that stump Carl, leaving him into saying these stupid things. The reason why I say I probably put Steven over Ricky in terms of this show is because Ricky has the least interesting caricature, at least in terms of design. I guess you can't really win this one when your competition is lanky-armed freak and chrome dome idiot. Plus, I think Steven has way better retorts to Carl's idiocy. For the most part, other than questioning Carl, Ricky's pretty much on cruise control for the entire series. He's just like us, the audience. He's just laughing at Carl's stupidity. And while I like the structure of the main part of the show, I really wish that the TV series would have a little bit more variety. I love Carl Pilkington. He's the main course, but I really did like some of the stories that Steven brought to the show. I'd even wager that Steven had some of the more entertaining stories, like how he lost his shorts in the ocean while trying to take a piss in the water as an adult and getting washed on shore with his dick out is pretty hysterical. Or when he was refused entry into a club is equally if not funnier. More bits like that, I would say, make the TV series a little bit greater in my eyes. But for what the show has some pretty interesting segments. Like the integration of Carl's diary is my most enjoyed part of the show because this is just him documenting his life, but it just ends up being comical and it's pure genius. Mostly because Carl's diary is just full of shit that's not even important or worth having a document of at all.
A few months back, a girl who was having a kid showed me one of them scans of the kid that was in her. That's science gone mad, innit? I couldn't think of anything nice to say as it looked like a frog.
The monkey news segment was kind of hit or miss. There were some that I found to be entertaining, but over time my liking of the segment became less and less. It just became annoying drivel, and that's kind of the point of the whole segment, but it's not really that funny. If the drivel is not funny, then it's just annoying. The artwork of the Ricky Gervais show is also something that I thought was quite strong. The actual animation of the show is pretty standard. It gets the job done and it conveys what the conversations are about quite well, but I mostly just like it for the stylization of the show and the designs of the characters. Harkening back to that sweet Hanna-Barbera type artwork. It's just very appealing to look at, and I can't really picture it in another style that would truly work. And I feel like this style is most appropriate for the personalities themselves. Also, the craftsmanship that went into the design for the background art is incredible. I noticed while looking up info for the show that the background art for a chunk of it was done by an artist that did the backgrounds for Dan Vs., a show whose backgrounds are freaking drop-dead gorgeous. But if you don't have the time to watch or sit down and watch a full episode of the show, remember, it originally started off as a radio show. You have the virtue to just not look at it and leave it on in the background like Dr. Katz. But I really would implore people to give this your full attention because of the quality of the art. But the fact that you can do that proves the synergy and entertainment in the dialogue with Ricky, Steve, and Carl is quite strong. So the Ricky Gervais show lasted for 3 seasons and it was pretty well received.
Seth MacFarlane, creator of the Family Guy, said it's the best animation he's ever seen.
I don't like comments like that.
So why aren't there any more episodes? Well, the actual podcast all 3 of them do is pretty much ended and all 3 went their separate ways. The last time they kind of worked together on some sort of project was with Derek. And Ricky Gervais is pretty much doing his own thing with his movies and lucrative Netflix deals. Steven went on to do some other acting roles, most notably his role in the Portal franchise as Wheatley, and even being a character in 2017's Logan, along with some other projects. A lot of Carl's projects have been a lot smaller in comparison, mostly series that stay within his home country, but apparently he has an upcoming show where it's about a what-if scenario of his life if he never met up and worked with Stephen Merchant and Ricky Gervais. That's gonna be a very interesting show to watch and will fuel this Game Grumps-esque drama that everyone believes that these guys have with each other. If you want basically an extension of the Ricky Gervais show, I suggest An Idiot Abroad. It's pretty entertaining seeing Carl Pilkington, this very simple Englishman, experiencing these very vastly different cultures.
There's a woman over there just tucking in on a bunch of scorpions. Look at her, like she's just having like a bit of a chicken leg. Not a problem, just shoving them in her face. She looks at it before she puts it in her mouth like, oh yeah, which bit will I have first? The head or the arse?
There seems to be many people that still believe that they all might get back together one day and do the podcast again, and it's not like it's an impossible thing to do, but I don't know if that would be a good idea. I feel like due to the newfound fame of Carl Pilkington and knowing that many people love him for his stupidity and his thoughts, I feel like there could come a case where Carl will answer any of Ricky or Steven's questions insincerely, meaning playing himself up to become more of a character, which he is not. If there is more of the show, there's more, but if there isn't, there's literally hours of compilations of Carl Pilkington in this show being viewed online. My personal favorite of all these compilations is of Carl calling Steven an ugly freak.
He's gonna steal Angelina away from Brad.
Oh.
Oh, I wouldn't want to be Brad when this guy walks in the room.
See, if I was her, I'd rent another baby then, rather than... Because what would come out? You and her.
What do you mean what would come out?
Jesus.
Something magnificent.
That would be on the Science Channel.